Hey guys, I'm Jackie Brubaker. I'm an author, a motivational and career coach, and host of That Girl the Podcast. Each week, I bring on a leader in their field to talk about how to stop making excuses and how you can start living your lifelong dream. That Girl the Podcast is based on That Girl the Novel, which is on Amazon to download or buy the paperback of. You can also follow us on Instagram at That Girl the Podcast and our Patreon page. Hi, Amber.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, super excited.
Yay. You are so cute. I love your whole thing, the adulting queen. She has no last name too. I kept looking for your last name, like Amber, you have no last name. But it's just Amber, the adulting queen. That's it. That's all it needs to be. The end. She helps people learn how to adult, which I love. I just love it so much. So we're going to talk all about that. I like people to give a brief description of who they are and what they do, because I feel like people do a better job talking about themselves than like I could for them. So go for it.
Yeah, so I'm Amber. Like you said, my last name is Hurt. Amber Hurt, like I hurt you. Definitely got made fun of a lot for that. Yes, exactly. I'm not really hurting people. That is just my last name, aka the Adulting Queen. And I went to undergrad for psychology. Then I got my master's in higher education and leadership policy studies, which basically means I wanted to work at colleges with students forever. And so I started in residence life working with students that live on campus. And I just recently in July transitioned to working for student activities, which is just planning like all the large scale campus events. And then where the Adulting Queen came in with this is that working with students all the time, like they're asking me, how do I prepare for interviews? How do I get car insurance? Like, how do I look for apartments? How do I, do literally anything, because they don't know how to do those things when they're adjusting from college to like the real world. Right. So I was like, I'm kind of onto something. Let me start the Adulting Queen. So I started it in January 2019. Also because my friends would always ask me about like the brunch places I would go to, all the traveling hacks and like getting cheap flights and hotels and things like that. So I started the page. And then when the pandemic hit is really when it kind of took off, because that's when people were looking to things to do online. So I started doing a lot of events like Sip and Sunday, creative circles, and all Black everything. And aside from that, I feel like that's what takes up most of my time, work and the Adulting Queen. I love brunch. Can't do that the same anymore. Love traveling. Can't do that the same anymore. Also Beyonce. Can't go to her concerts right now. There are none of those.
No concerts.
Yeah, I really miss concerts a lot. That's something I loved. And yeah, like that's pretty much me. I feel like my Adulting Queen brand like really is me and sums up what I do of like liking to inspire people, but also showing that like everything's not perfect, even for me, even though I say like I'm the Adulting Queen, we're all figuring this out together as we're going along.
Oh my God, Amber. After this, I have something to tell you about what you're doing, because it's very close to my heart. I love this because people do not know how to adult, and they are even in their 40s and their 50s, whatever. They're just like, I don't know how to do that. Because somewhere along the line, we just like stopped teaching kids and high schoolers how to do anything. Like, I miss home ec. I didn't have home ec, but I wish I had, because it would have been so great to like learn how to do basic things in your life. Like, I mean, at the time, like when I was in high school, like people still balance their checkbooks. Like I can't even, I didn't even do it then. I was like, that looks so hard. I'm terrible at math. Thank God online banking came out like 2 seconds later. Like,
and that's a good point. Like adulting is hard, but it definitely was harder before technology. Because things you had to do by hand. Actually, I was just looking up about to file my taxes, and they were like, oh yeah, like you don't have to sit at the kitchen table with paper and pen and calculators anymore. And I was like, wow, we really did used to do taxes just strictly paper and mail.
That's terrifying. That's just terrifying to me. I've always had an accountant for that reason, because I'm like, I don't know how to do this. You do. But there's so many things we don't know how to do. Like, you know, if I didn't have AAA, there's no way I would know how to fix a tire. Like,
or who to call.
Right, or who to. That's a huge one too. Who to call. There are things in life that like maybe you've never even heard about, but then suddenly you're like, Wait, what is that? I'm supposed to know what that is, and that's part of my like adult life?
Exactly. And it's like unset expectations.
Yes. What kind of things like that have you come across?
Yeah, definitely health insurance. Like I'm still trying to figure that out for myself as now I've been a professional for 6 years and on my own insurance. I'm like, what does this mean? Like I understand open enrollment. That means you can check like what you want to do or what you want to change, if anything, the health savings account. But I feel like what is like most nerve-wracking about health insurance is that you really don't know if what you're picking is good for you until you have to start going to the doctor. And then unfortunately, you can't change it until the next year.
Which is
So,
nuts.
yes. And with health insurance, I feel like that being something I still like am constantly learning about. It's that also that your employer won't tell you what to pick or like what the pros and cons are. They just tell you like what the basics of it are. And then you pick on your own judgment. But again, like you don't know the answers to that. So that's definitely one thing.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Just looking at the choices, I'm like, I don't know. What's the cheapest choice? I'll take that one.
But then it's like you have to take into consideration, like, do you have any special treatments of why you have to go to the doctor a lot? Like, do you go to the doctor like regularly? Do you go like seldom? But again, you don't know those things until you get there. And then God forbid something does happen with your health and you don't have the insurance you need.
Right.
So what do you do?
Totally. So I love brunch. I have been brunching. So I live in Los Angeles. Where are you again?
I'm in Baltimore now, but I'm originally from New York. I've lived in Miami, traveled to tons of cities for brunch.
I love it. I love it. So are places like open by you now, or are they still kind of shut down?
It is so like interesting because again, I moved to Baltimore in June. So like I started the pandemic in New York. And so New York was like the place you did not want to be.
Are you able to brunch?
So yes, now, but I haven't gone because I do not like winter and it's freezing, obviously.
Oh
And we
my
just
God,
got all
that's
this
right.
snow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some places still are doing outdoor dining, which that's crazy.
Oh, you guys are doing indoor dining at certain places?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you have to. I mean, what else would you do? Like, no one would be able to go on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have brunch the last 2 weekends that we've finally been opened. And the first brunch was a big fancy brunch because I was like, I need
You
this.
have to go all out. Exactly. You missed it.
Oh my God. I was like, we are going to a fancy hotel. We are getting a bottle of champagne. We're just going to sit there for 4 hours and just enjoy our brunch. I mean, we were so drunk. I was like, it's been a minute.
That's the only good brunch if you're drunk. That's what everybody knows. I'm going for the bottomless mimosas. If it's not bottomless, we're not going there.
I mean, like, what is brunch without mimosas? I mean, seriously. So you love to travel. Travel's been shut down.
Yes.
How is traveling and adulting tied together?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because I think when I started like my adulting queen thing, like my tagline is brunch, travel, adult, repeat. And so for people who don't like brunch or people who don't like traveling or don't do it as
Who doesn't
often,
like brunch?
No, exactly. There are people. There are people. We won't talk about them now. Exactly. So with thinking about that, like I feel like traveling ties into adulting because you find out a lot about yourself through traveling. You find out like a lot more about the world. And it just opens up your perspective to so many things. Like, and it's really like you don't realize it until you're at the place or when you get home. So like going out of the country, speaking different languages. If we're in the US, like we hear different languages, but we are more accommodating to people who speak multiple languages. When you go out of the country, people only will know like their language. So it's very difficult to communicate with other people. Money, how they take currency, things they do for traveling. Like I know when I went to Puerto Rico, I think that was like maybe 5 years ago, they didn't do Uber and Lyft. Like, so you couldn't do those. They wanted you to use taxis, but coming from the US, like we use Uber and Lyft. So it's things like that you're like, wow, like I feel privileged for like what I can do like in my own country or like in even your state, because the pandemic has shown that different states and governments handle things so differently too. So just traveling really just opens your eyes up, and then it even like increases your friendships and your bonds with the people that you were traveling with. And also shows you maybe who you might not want to be friends with or travel with because of
Right.
how like the trip has gone. So I think you just find out a lot about yourself, and taking like solo trips or even just like traveling to a destination by yourself. Like it's just so many things that in the moment you would not think about until after.
Mm-hmm. What is one of the biggest lessons you've learned traveling by yourself or with others?
So I'm from the US. I've lived in the US my whole life, but I feel like when you travel to other countries, you again just realize like how privileged we are in the US, but then also like countries like Canada, free healthcare, like education, like how accommodating they are for the people
Yeah.
that live there, even
Yeah.
just like how clean it is. You're like, if other countries can do this, why can't the US when we have like allegedly the biggest source of like resources and access to things, but like we still struggle with issues like homelessness. Like New York City
I
is
was just
extremely
thinking that.
dirty.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's like one of the biggest things. Again, it just opens your eyes to so many different issues. And in other countries, you realize like how underserved they are as well. And that
Right.
when we as Americans travel there, it's very like touristy, and we are the people bringing their money to the country because we're
Mm-hmm.
traveling there. So I thought about that a lot with the pandemic, that like if you're a tourist country or city, you have lost out on so much. So like how will that affect people years to come? But personally, I feel like that I've just learned like that I one am like a risk taker, and like I'm adventurous, because a lot of places I would travel like by myself, meeting my friends there. And then again, like living in Miami had definitely helped because I knew nobody there. Again,
Mm-hmm.
moved like over 1,000 miles to try somewhere new.
That's amazing.
Living.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It was really great. Every winter I'm like, why did I come back here? Like, I don't know. And then I lived even in Texas for like 2 months for an internship. So I think that like that just helped me not be afraid to like get up and go or like try something different. And again, even moving to Baltimore, like I had never been here too much before at all. And I will say this was definitely a difficult adjustment because of the pandemic, moving
Mm-hmm.
from somewhere.
Right. I can only imagine. I mean, what are you going to do? You get there and then you're like, and all right.
Yeah, exactly. And like thankfully one of my friends that previously worked with me in New York lives here too. So
Okay, good.
that has been extremely helpful. But at the same time, like even I'm like 7, 8 months in and I'm still kind of like, I live here. This is like interesting. So
Do you feel, because that's a good question, because a lot of people, when they're, just like starting out in life, like they do move to different states or even different countries, and it is completely like no friends, no family, it's all foreign.
yes.
How, with the pandemic, especially, like that is very isolating. How are you handling that? And
Yeah.
do you feel like you're kind of at like an extended stay of Baltimore, like kind of almost like a long
Yeah. Yeah.
internship too?
Yeah, so that this is great so far. I'm like loving this. All the questions are again things I've thought about but never like expressed out loud or like thought through completely. So I definitely feel like it's not permanent because of the time that we're in. And then
Mhm.
I also was living like on campus. So last weekend I actually moved to my apartment, and I feel like that did give me a sense of like, okay, like I'm settling more than I was previously. So I feel like that mindset also had me again feeling like I can get up and go whenever I want. Like I don't have to be like stable, like not stable. I don't have to be like stationary in one
Sure.
place for a
Yeah.
long time. I don't know where or if I'll move anywhere after this. I'm trying to like settle in, like you said, and just feel like this is now like where I will live until who knows when.
Because like when you are young and you are moving around, you just have the luxury to get out and like go see things and meet people just on the fly.
Yeah.
That's it's really putting a wrench in all of that.
Mhm. It's just not the same because moving somewhere new, if we weren't in a pandemic, I still would be traveling. So I would still feel like a sense of like normalcy in my lifestyle versus like I have to just like sit here and really realize like, oh wow, I'm in a whole new place.
So when it comes to basic starting adulting, what are the things that you have found people are struggling with the most?
Yeah, tons of things, especially because, like I said, I started this with working with my students, and then it has expanded to like my peers and even like you said, people who are 40, 50.
Right.
But I think that people struggle with self-awareness, which I say self-awareness is like the key to everything else because you can only control you.
Mhm.
And if you don't know yourself, it's very hard for you to like enter spaces or like have relationships or like interact with people, whether that's work, strangers, like whatever, because how you are as a person is like how you'll show up in different spaces. So I think you need to definitely like know yourself, which you're always changing, but know like kind of what stays constant for you and like what are triggers and things that you
Mhm.
know you like or don't like, and being able to communicate that to others. But you can't communicate what you don't know. So like you really need to do some awareness activities and things like that to help you out a lot.
Okay, so what are some really good resources for people who are having problems adulting?
Mhm.
Say that they have just finished college, they have moved into their first apartment. Um, things like background checks for, to get a apartment, setting up utilities, all of those really
Yes.
basic things that they're like, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. Do you
Yes.
have resources of like either on your website or that like videos you do or whatever to sort of teach people how to do that? Or
Yeah.
go on. Yes, go.
Yes. So for one, the apartment hunting, because like I said, I just did that for the first time myself as well. And I'm going to record a video in 2 weeks with one of my friends who her handles House of A Financial. She talks about like the finance part and like getting all that together. So there will be a video and blog on my website, theadultingqueen.com, with all of that information. Definitely. And I'm going to do probably like some Instagram lives or Q&A or something, because when I just posted that I was moving and got a new apartment, like everybody was like, yeah, I need help because this is like really rough. But once I started looking, I was like nobody helps you with this. And when I say nobody,
Right.
I mean like the apartment complexes or like the renters, they just are like, hello, here's the place.
Here are your
Okay,
keys.
see ya. Yeah, but you're like, so what do I do? Like, what do I have to set up? Like, what does rent
Yeah.
include? Because you need to think about things like you said, like utilities. For me, I'm renting from like a private owned house. So, like, the driveway, if it's snowing, like, what is that like? The trash pickup, like things
Yeah.
like that like they don't tell you. And then it's like when you're asking, you almost feel silly for asking, but you need to ask questions. And it's okay to not know something, even though
Right.
people might make you feel like, you should know this. We have quickly learned like nobody knows everything, and it is
Yeah.
perfectly fine to ask questions.
That's, I think, the biggest part of just growing up and adulting is just not, at any age, really, just not being afraid to ask questions. And no question is stupid. It's like we always heard
Yeah.
in school. It's true. Like, it's better to just at least find out. And like, even if it's still a little hazy, just like, at least you've got some more information. Like, let's figure it
Yeah.
out some more. Now it's like so easy to just Google something and be like, how do you do this? But like, even then, I think if you don't even know where to start, you don't even
Yes.
know what to Google. So,
Exactly.
which
Yeah.
is why what you're doing is so important. I can feel a lot of like parents of, kids in like college and coming out of college being like, ooh, this is important. Like, this is what I need to like put them in
Yeah.
touch with because, I mean, parents are parents and like they're all kinds of people. But it's always so much easier to like be with someone who's like closer to their age to
Yes.
actually be like,
Exactly.
this is what's going on, this is how you do it. And they're more likely to like, listen and really take the advice.
Yeah. And
Are
that's
there
exactly what I was going to say, because like I was going to say the first people you should turn to ask questions are your family or like your peers. But among
Mhm.
your peers, it's hard to have these conversations because again, you for some reason think everybody has it figured out. So you don't want to be that one person that's asking. But now like I definitely have started asking my sister, like, how did you buy your house? Like, what is the process for that? Because again, like if you're talking to a realtor, they'll give you like the basics, but that still doesn't help you understand.
Right.
And to your point too, I was thinking this, I was like, your family is a good resource. However, they like went through these things so long ago and things have
Yes.
changed a lot. So their
Right.
input is still valuable and they know like the process, but there could be new things or new resources too that will help you better acclimate to whatever your situation is.
Right. Well, I'm just so glad that you exist because I think
Thank
this
you.
is such a huge resource and I can already see so many videos and tutorials and all things coming out from you because this honestly like it is truly for, younger people and older people who are just like I don't know how to, like you just said like buy a house. Like I haven't bought a house yet.
Yes.
Like I don't know how to do that, you know?
Exactly. And you don't think about these things until you're getting there. So
Mm,
it's like, how do you stay steps ahead of adulting? And again, working in an education system, it's like, when should we start preparing students, like college age students for this? And then even high school students without them feeling overwhelmed or as if like their life
right.
is over. But like, it's really not that we're trying to say your life is over. It's just that we're saying that we want you to be more prepared for what you're
Mhm.
about to go through than what you are now.
Because, if they're prepared, they can actually have a much better chance of succeeding, of course. But I think what it is that you just want them to grow up as well because it's so easy to just be like, well, I'll just go live with my parents again. And then just stay
Yeah.
infantilized for 10 years and be like, oh, I guess I should move out at 40.
And then you don't know what to do still then it's like so
Yeah.
hard. And again, because like I feel like for our parents, like my dad, he didn't go to college, he didn't finish high school, and he is just like, I don't see why you kept going to school, like I don't see what this is about. But like he
Yeah.
now sees that it like has paid off, obviously. And my sister as well, like she went to undergrad and has 2 masters. But for him, just because that's not what he did, he was like just confused.
Well, and I think that's a really good point too, is that, our parents might not be like us. And sometimes they just are completely different than us and they won't understand how to do certain things because A, they've never done it, like you said, or they
Hmm.
just don't understand it, or they don't even understand why it should be happening in
Yeah,
your life.
exactly.
And so I think that can hinder a lot of younger people who are like, okay, well, I guess I won't. It's so easy because you're so new. Everything is so new and you're so moldable that you need someone to kind of
Yeah.
mentor you, even in the most basic of ways. I think that's
Yes.
amazing that you and your sister went and just were like, we're just going to get major educated.
And
No,
not in a bad way at all. It's just like, again, being thankful for like the environment that I was in that was like promoting that, because I really
yeah.
don't know what else I would have done.
Absolutely. Like you just said, it's like you are preparing younger people for their future. And if you give them the option, like there are these options too, you have a
Yeah.
choice.
And I'm definitely all about giving people options, because even though I work in a school, I'm not saying everybody should go to college. College isn't
Mhm.
for everybody.
Right.
It is getting extremely expensive.
Mhm.
It's not the same experience because of COVID. So
Oh my
there are a
gosh.
lot
Yeah.
of things to think about when you are choosing a school to attend to now. But again, giving people options, because I think the world now views like, if you don't go to college, like what are you doing? But there
Mhm.
are tons of other options. And I feel like in the future that a lot of trade things and like
Mhm.
construction and things like that will kind of slowly die out, because
Mhm.
millennials don't want to do that. Like in Gen Z, they want to be like
Yes.
world changers and we want to make
Yeah.
differences. But those people in those positions do make differences too, because we need them. Like we need that to keep
Right.
like things going.
No, I completely agree with you because it's really just the person. It's based on what feels right to them. And maybe trade school does feel perfect for them or college. Like I would stay in college my whole life. I would be
I
in
tell my
life.
students all the time I would go back. I was like, yes, I
Oh
work
yeah.
at one, but that is not the same.
No, it's seriously, it is fun. My favorite thing, I'm such a nerd. I'm so goal oriented and I love that in school, you could just work really hard and get the grade and like move forward. And it's so not like that in life. It's so
Yeah, and that's
not like
yeah.
that.
It's not at all. It's like you do something really, really well, and like you kind of just have to tell yourself, like, you did great at that. So now, like, go wash the dishes. Like, it's not anything.
Just like that. It's just like that. So like I've gone back and forth to school just because. And when I'm in school, I'm just like almost kind of cocky because I'm like, A, I'm older. B, I'm smarter and I get things faster. So I'm going to kill all you little scrubs. Like seriously, like I'm super competitive and I do really, really well in my classes. But yeah, I mean, it's so not for everyone. And some people
Yeah.
absolutely hate school, like have always hated it,
Yeah.
will always hate it. Good. Good. You
Yeah.
know it. You know that. Woohoo.
And
But
exactly, and it goes back to like being self-aware, but then like also like
mhm.
when you're in high school, just being okay with telling like your parents or family that like you don't want to do something, which is really hard because at that
Yeah.
time, like you said, people are very moldable and like adaptable to the other people around them. And that's another issue with like education, that you find out way too late that like you don't like it or you didn't want to do it. And then
Yes.
what do you do when you have finished 3 years already and now you want to change your major, which will take you another 5 years? Like there's so many
Yeah.
things.
What other things about adulting that you have found are really important that maybe people aren't aware of right now?
Definitely finances. And when I say finances, it's not like that you need to make a whole bunch of money or like say that you're like rich. I think you need to know how to manage your money and make your money like work for you,
Yes.
and like having boundaries and like tracking your money and saving money is like super important too. Even if you just started with like $20 a check, like that will add up
Mhm.
eventually. What like loans you've taken out, all that stuff affects you. And again, nobody tells you until you're getting to a point where you want to buy something or like look into something or loan or whatever. And then they're like, oh, well, your credit score is not good, or you don't
Right.
have enough money to put down, things like that. You don't know. I think a lot of talk now has been about like mental health and self-care, but that goes beyond like saying like take a bubble bath and like drink
Thank
a
you.
smoothie.
Oh, that's
That's
what I
not what
say.
self-care is. Self-care is like literally just taking a shower, like drinking water, doing your laundry, like staying on top of your
Yeah.
chores. Like really the
Yeah.
basic things that you need to do to survive is self-care. And it's like hard for people to grasp when we're saying it like that, because they're like, well, you're supposed to be doing that. But
Mm.
a lot of people struggle really deeply with mental health that like they really can't do that. So for them,
Yeah.
like taking a shower is a huge accomplishment. So you need to like focus on very small things,
Mhm.
and like giving gratitude, whether you do it with like a journal, you send people cards, like whatever it is, just to like give people their flowers while they are here, especially again, because going back to COVID, we just learned that like life is very short. Like
Mhm.
we knew that already, but it is extremely short now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I would say again, like I can't stress enough, like being self-aware and learning yourself, and then using that to like set your boundaries, to be confident in who you are, and be like the best version of you, no matter like what other people might think. Because I think that gives you the ability, one, to like be okay with failing and
Mhm.
also starting over, which that is extremely hard to do as an adult, because you think
Yeah.
like I spent X, Y, and Z on this, or I spent 20 years doing this. So what am I going to do now? But I
Right.
think that it's never too late for somebody to start over, or to say like, I don't want to do this, because you really make the choices of your life. And again, that sounds so like simple, but from all of the outside factors of like social media, family, friends, like just pressure, it is hard for people to like start over or do something that can be seen as unpopular, even if
Yeah.
that's the best decision for them to make for themselves. So overall, I'm just all about people living like their best life, but like their true life. Like I'm not saying your best life is like showing off for Instagram or like
Yeah.
Twitter or whatever. Like your best life that makes you actually like feel good and like wanting to like continue doing like what you're doing. And then if not, like how do you figure out the different paths to go or what
I
help you might need?
Because it's true, when you are suffering with mental health issues, they could be temporary, they could be, long standing. Writing down a list of either what you need to do, but more so what you're good at, so that you don't
Yes.
need to remember. You could just look at your list and be like, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what my boundaries are. These are my boundaries. And then that way, it's like whenever you're confused or things are just complicated or you feel pressure, you can actually look at this list again and just say,
Yes.
these are my standards. Like, this is what works for me. This doesn't feel right, but it seems interesting. Let me go back to
Yes.
my list. And I think, like what you said, just being really self aware, you can make the best choices for yourself. And especially when you are just starting, really at any age too. Like you said, like people can start over at 20 years after doing something, and you're right back at it. You're right back at that like beginning student phase all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've learned some more this time, but like, it's still just a
Yes.
beginner's brain. Just knowing what you're good at and your self-awareness is huge. And I
Yeah.
think that really is for anybody. I really think that our generation and younger will never think like, oh, by like this age you're old, or by this age you're done.
Yes.
Because all of us are just constantly rebranding ourselves, recreating ourselves, and it's become really normal. And no
Yeah.
one would stay at a job for 30 years like our grandparents and then like
Yes.
retire.
Yes. Yeah. No.
But yeah, just that self-awareness I think is just so key in like adulting, just really knowing what works for you.
Yeah.
And then you can figure out the rest of it. Some of
Yeah.
the normalcies that you need to like figure out as you're going, you'll figure it out. But like the big, life decisions too, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what are my standards?
Yeah, because in my adulting one-on-one presentation, I'm like, the keys to adulting are like budgeting, self-awareness, boundaries, self-care. So a lot of them tie back together too, because like self-awareness to me like encompasses everything. But then when I broke it down to like smaller things, it's definitely like knowing who like your community is and like who are the people that are like, really rooting for you. Like,
Yeah.
what's your purpose of like what is it that you want to do and like what legacy do you want to leave in the world? And it really is like through stages of life, because you're doing a lot of unlearning. And K through 12, it's like somebody's always there to help you like every step of the way. College, I mean, there are administrators and professors that are like that, but sometimes there aren't. And you have an expectation from high school that like people will be there to help you like that, and they don't. And then when you get to your job, they definitely don't help you. So like you're just confused because you're like, all my life I've had people helping me the whole way, and now I'm kind of just like dropped here. So like, what am I supposed to do?
You know what? That is a really interesting thought. Because, I hear from like baby boomers, they're like, I don't understand these younger people. Like they expect us to like hold their hand and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? You just perfectly articulated why that is. And it makes
because K through 12, that's all that's happening. You have to ask to go to the bathroom. You're told when you go to what classes. You get your schedule. You don't pick it. Like they just tell you what classes you're in. That's that. Be where you're supposed to be at what time you're supposed to be there. And then college is like freedom. What do I do? Like, you're not going to tell me what I need to take. Like, you're not going to make sure I'm in class. You're not going to call my mom if I'm not there. Like,
And what's interesting too is it was the baby boomers who like raised us all with all of this helicopter parenting. So it's really just their fault. So if they're pissed, this is their fault.
You raised me. So
yeah, right. Like this is your product. This is it. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun. And I think you're awesome. And I can't wait to watch more videos and just get it out there. Tell people where they can find you.
Yes, literally everywhere. I have a YouTube channel, which has like a lot of my Sippin' Sundays that cover in depth more of like the things we talked about, like keys to adulting, self-care, traveling, wellness, all of that. It's all The Adulting Queen. So on YouTube, The Adulting Queen, Facebook, The Adulting Queen, Instagram, The Adulting Queen, website, theadultingqueen.com, even TikTok, The Adulting Queen, Pinterest, The Adulting Queen, literally everything.
Girl,
but the last one, yes, but the last one, unfortunately, Twitter is Adulting AMBZ, AMBZ, because somebody has The Adulting Queen on there.
Damn it.
Yes, exactly. So everything is The Adulting Queen except for Twitter, Adulting AMBZ, AMBZ.
Thank you so much for being on.
Yes, thank you.